Okay, I'd like to welcome Gerald Chenard to the school for interview for the superintendent's position, and welcome everybody here. The interview committee, we will have 45 minutes for this interview, so we're going to try to expedite it. Everybody will read a question, and we'll have like about 2 minutes on each question so that we can be sure and get to the questions at the end if we need to do anything else. So with that, we'll begin. Bonnie, would you like to begin with the first question?
Sure. Give us a brief description of your educational experience and personal interests you have outside of the field of education.
Okay, well, hi, everyone. Again, my name is Gerald Chenard. Currently, I'm the superintendent of Hot Springs Public Schools in Hot Springs. I started my education back in, or my career in education back in 1989 and teaching. First job I could get, because there were no jobs in Montana, was in Idaho Falls, Idaho, with the plan of moving back to Montana as soon as I could gain some experience. Within that journey, I ended up meeting my wife, who was a native Idahoan, so I spent the next 25 years there. Retired out of the state of Idaho, came back to Montana in 2014. By that time, I had several years experience as a principal and was looking toward going towards superintendency. My brother was he's now a retired superintendent, and he encouraged me to step into the rank of the superintendency. So I moved back to Montana in 2014 as a principal, and began my journey toward the superintendency in 2016, and began my superintendency courses, finished those up that summer. Applied for several positions and was fortunate enough to secure the superintendency in my district that I was working in at that time, which was Lame Deer Public Schools. I spent 4 years in Lame Deer Public Schools, had some things within life change with our family situation, began applying in 2020, the COVID year, or the beginning of COVID, and secured the position of superintendency at Hot Springs, where I've been since, and it's been an enjoyable career. Personally, I've got great interest in my family. I've got 4 grown boys, and we're about to see our youngest boy who's 30 now. My goodness. He and his fiance will be getting married this summer. I also have a great deal of interest in kids of my districts, making sure that I'm staying up on them. I live in a small community, so have a lot of interest in the kids around there. Do a lot of golfing, a lot of fishing, a lot of fly fishing, and a lot of kayaking. That's pretty much me.
Great, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
This is a 2-part question. Tell us about what you feel are your strengths as an educational leader and as a person.
Yeah, as an educational leader, I believe I'm, believe the folks that I've worked with and the schools that I've led would say that I'm very grounded in my beliefs and my vision for education. My personal vision is that all students can and must learn. And I believe that I need to do whatever it takes to ensure that I'm touching as many of those as I possibly can, and touching as many educators as I possibly can, and giving them the support for their instruction within their classroom and their leadership in their classroom to ensure positive student outcomes. And I believe what comes with that is a great deal of perhaps learned humility, but humility nonetheless, based on experience of being in the field and seeing the things I've seen and experiencing the experiences I've experienced. As a person, I would hope folks would see that I am humble first, have compassion for, all the different challenges that, folks, whether they're family, whether they're friends, whether they're colleagues face. And, someone who is genuine, um, and, always open to suggestion and open to growth themselves, lifelong learner. Simply.
Please describe a healthy relationship between the superintendent and board when working on day-to-day affairs and long-term planning of the district.
Well, with anything in the district, I believe that, the culture that we set as a team, that I set as a leader, is key to our success. And within that culture, I believe collaboration, between myself and my board, and, a great deal of communication, whether it's, day-to-day, general discussion, or, every other day, week by week, as things come up, or, a scheduled discussion, with board members, either via email or, one-on-one, or when crisis occurs, if there's something that has happened that, I believe, board members are going to hear about, very, very quickly. I want to be the first one to communicate that with them and work with them to make sure that we're addressing any issues, any crises, that type of thing. I believe that I'm here to advise the board, and I believe I am an arm of the board, putting the board's, policies and intentions into action, within the school district. And, it's been my experience that, that board, superintendent relationship needs to be based on a shared vision and, shared beliefs. And if we have that shared vision, if we have those shared beliefs, it's much easier for me to function within that relationship, as well as my relationship with my principals, teachers, paraprofessionals, et cetera. And I believe we're most effective that way.
Thank you.
All right, give us an example of the process you would use in developing the school district budget for presentation to the board.
Well, the first thing I would do is, have a lunch with my, business manager and clerk. And in fact, we would start, several lunches, probably right, just in, January, February this year, as we're, talking about and building that budget and the, different, challenges that we may face in the coming school year. And in building that budget, including in the spring, if or not we are going to need to run a levy, and see if we can find support for that. At that point in time, where we are, seeing, number one, what are our needs? What are our needs, and what do we have, money for within our general, within our federal programs, Title I, SPED, those type of things, and how can we best meet those needs? And are we going to come up short with all the, different, pots of money that we have in order to meet the needs of our students? And at that point in time, we're talking about, okay, what can we run this year, if at all possible? What amount are we going to need to run that for? And then we begin to do our best to build support for what we're going to be levying for in May.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, provide some examples of the approach you have taken or would take when difficult choices have to be made for budget reduction. How you would communicate your recommendations to all stakeholders.
Yes, well, that's something that I think there are many school districts across the state facing right now, including my current school district. The first thing, once again, probably my closest relationship in my district and always has been as a superintendent when I moved from superintendent to the, or from the principalship to my superintendencies has been our, my business manager and clerk. And so we would know well ahead of time, December-ish at the latest, that we were going to need to, number one, run a levy, and number two, make additional cuts if necessary, to one, build support within the community with our stakeholders, and then also to make ends meet. Bottom line, that general cannot go into default. We're going to get hit on that. So what I've done is done that. Yeah, put a budget committee together, and then prioritize what is our highest need. What is our highest need that we absolutely cannot touch, and then moving down the line, how can we make up for losing PE, elementary PE teacher, or a couple of our pairs within our title program, and if we need to go into the contract and go back into negotiations, as far as that's concerned, we can do so. We've got a good relationship with our union reps, and everybody knows what's at stake. So I believe getting that information out to that committee, then getting that information out to stakeholders, getting out a survey or two about how stakeholders are feeling about a levy that year, and that will give us more of a feeling as to what level of ask that we need to make, as far as the amount that we're going to be asking for. And then we make sure that as a board, we're owning that process and getting the word out there and listening to our community so that we can give us the highest level of chance of passing that levy. So, sorry,
Thank you.
got a little long-winded there.
That's right.
It's just something that we're currently going through right now. And that being said, then you put things on the table that are going to be significant that you could do without. And one thing that we've done now is we actually put one of our administrators, we will be going with one less administrator next year. So just and we feel that that's going to make the biggest impact with our community if we have to run a levy. And so we'll see.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of districts are in the same type of situation right now.
We understand.
Right, how would you build relationships between administration and the certified and classified staff?
I'm gonna go back to or I'm gonna delve into culture. There's a thought leader out there in business and education. I've actually been taken over by education. And a guy by the name of Peter Drucker in business, his saying out there is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And as we're moving along this journey together in education, we need to, I as a leader, need to come into a situation and build trust, ensure that folks can feel support and not just a level of accountability. I definitely want to ensure that folks know that with that trust comes their own empowerment to take risks, to move forward without scrutiny upon them. But by the same token, work toward once again, just like with the board, a shared vision, a shared set of values moving forward as we as West Valley School believe in and want to be that driving force, that driving vision as to guide us where we want our students to be, which is toward successful student outcomes.
So what's your philosophy on delegating authority and how do you maintain accountability?
Through delegating authority, I believe that's best done at a meeting, at a regular meeting, weekly meetings, whether you want to call them district leadership team meetings or building leadership team meetings. Again, number one, learning what the responsibilities have been in the past compared to the responsibilities that I've set forth in the leadership teams in the past, and then finding what best works for our district. And part of that's going to be based upon the communication and listening that I do with my leadership team. Again, I go back to that culture and shared vision, shared values, shared beliefs, and open communication and trust within that setting, so that then we go out and perform the duties as we need to. Holding folks accountable starts with self, by holding myself accountable first, and through modeling that, our leadership team, through that discussion and having open dialogue in those meetings or during one-on-ones, will then begin to or will immediately be self-accountable as well.
Bonnie, right back to you.
Describe how you would work with the school principals. In this case, we have two here at this school in our small district.
Well, I just touched on that a bit. We would have a leadership team that we would meet at least once weekly. Probably some weeks we would meet more than that throughout the week, depending on the different things that are happening within the district. And we would once again, elementary principals gonna have one set of requirements for them. They're gonna have a set of requirements for me. Same with the middle school principal. And based upon such, there will be support given to each one of them, and there will be asks from me to each one of them as well. And most of those asks are going to be things that are common among the three of us. You know, this is what we need to be able to effectively perform our jobs at the highest level, and provide our teachers and staff with what they need to, so that they can perform at their highest level.
How can this community and this board know that they have an effective school program?
What's the current reality and what's the data say? Because our effectiveness is based upon how our kids are performing. And that needs to be the first thing that we look at as we look at what are we doing in a long-term plan for continuous improvement. And based upon that data, and based upon a good, strong culture within the school and within our board superintendent relationship, we can then, based on those, that shared vision, that shared belief system, we can then begin to ask the right questions, ask frank questions of each other, and begin to put a program together to make those gains within that culture moving forward.
Where should leadership reside in curriculum development? Please explain your answer.
Leadership should be that glue between the board and between the instructional staff in order to ensure that we are effectively implementing our curriculum. The board has the final decision on curriculum. The teachers, there are the folks that where the rubber meets the road that are implementing curriculum and can see the effectiveness most rapidly. And the superintendent needs to, and the superintendent and the principals need to be studying that data as the teachers are to see the effectiveness of current curriculum, as well as researching the curriculum that's out there or curriculum materials that are out there in order to implement the when we've got things out there that will fit our highest needs, to implement those things within the curriculum that is set by the board.
Thank you. How do you feel about the Common Core standards implementation?
Common Core is the standards, but whether you're in the state of Montana, state of Idaho, state of Washington, there are common set of standards that we strive to meet in language arts, math, science, social studies, and the effectiveness in which we meet them are basis the foundation for our SBAC, other standardized tests, our ACT, our SAT. And so until there are a new set of standards out there from which to meet, that is how we compare, number one, our student performance, and number two, our effectiveness as educators. And until there's another set of standards out there, that's what we have to be striving for, because we have no other way to truly measure how well we're doing.
I think that would be, give us examples of your involvement when dealing with facilities, grounds, and building projects.
Had a great deal of involvement, a couple districts back, very, very large building project. And I was lucky enough or unlucky enough to deal with a half-done project on an elementary school that started out as a $7 million project. And by the time we finally got the cap on the project, it was a little over $18 million. But it had started with the previous superintendent that I followed, and I was like I said, I was lucky enough to get the project, and we were fortunate enough within that district to have a great deal of impact aid funds, because it was in an area with quite a bit of federal aid. So we were able to finish the project. There were a lot of ups and downs with that project. floors not being done right, having to bring contractors back, firing a contractor and bringing another outfit in. And these were all pretty well renowned contractors within the state of Montana. But I found myself, being somewhat of a project manager, but, we eventually did hire, a project manager for the entire project, which made things go much smoother. But I've had experience there. I've got experience in my current district that doesn't have that kind of money, it seems as if a lot of times, if it's not essential, we're putting a Band-Aid on it from now. But those things have become safety issues. Those are the things that we put a lot of our building reserve money into and work on getting those things fixed immediately because they're safety issues, so.
Thank you.
Give us examples of, what experience have you had with a transportation program?
I've overseen 2 transportation programs, one very large one, at which we transported kids pretty much back and forth to sports practices every night. So we were running buses from 6 a.m. until sometimes 8 o'clock at night. And then I've had a bare bones transportation program within my current district, excuse me. Which sometimes we will have a bus down or something, so I'll be driving a minibus, or I'll be driving in one of our school vehicles, driving a group of kids home. But my experiences have been varied. I know that we've always kept our transportation program in the black, which is a good thing, particularly in a small district. But luckily we get our transportation reimbursement every year. I usually have somebody running it, which is second in command in hierarchy to me. And it's been effective.
What steps would you find appropriate when planning for the growth in the district?
Number one, make sure that we've got plenty of data that reflects the need for growth. We have plenty of stakeholder survey data to do so, where there's areas in which what the vision of the board, the superintendent, that team is at odds with the vision of stakeholders, then we've got some work to do. And through communications, we send out all the written communication you want. It doesn't, in my experience, it's not beared the fruit of one-on-one and collective communication within meetings and one-on-one meetings with key stakeholders. And then once you can get a majority of key stakeholders on, then you've got a team moving forward, and then you can begin that planning process and seeing what resources you're going to need to put together to be able to effectively address it. In other words, what am I going to need? What are we going to need to build this project? And then we see what our resources are. We see we run a bond, we run a bond. Agricultural area, very difficult to run a bond because of the fact that it's all, you've got folks there, you're basically a residential area that you're trying to pull your tax base from. That means everybody's taxes are gonna go up considerably. So then you need to, can we afford not to do this? And here's the program that we've got right now. This is the school that we've got. This is what we need. This is where we need to get to. How do we fill that gap? And what are the costs for not filling that gap? And we've got these great programs going on within our school right now. If we continue to overload teachers with students, two things are gonna happen. Research says the effectiveness is gonna go down and teachers are gonna get overwhelmed and they're gonna leave. We're gonna lose teachers. Do our stakeholders want that? We have those discussions. We have those open discussions. We don't, we don't try to scare folks, but we don't want to pull any punches either. Because they have to know what the current reality is and what the current reality will be. If a certain project is not done. That's just, bottom line is, sometimes we're gonna need the public support, and sometimes taxes are gonna have to rise a bit over a certain period of time to be able to implement the needs for the good of our kids, for the good of our kids and their success, and our staff, keep our staff together. And in the end, the community is going to benefit from it. One of the things I often ask some of the folks that don't have kids anymore in my current district, and I don't know if they hike it too much, is, who paid for your education? It was those in your community that were your elders before you. And I think we have a responsibility in our area, in our state, in our country, to ensure that our kids are getting the best.
Thank you. I think you kind of touched on this already. Have you been involved in a mill levy election bond or building reserve voter approval campaign? And please evaluate the success failure of this campaign.
Yes, I have been. In my 33rd year of my 33rd year, 29th year of education, we ran a levy. Yeah, we ran a levy last year. And like many Western Montana towns, districts, we did not pass it. It was the first levy I've ever had. And most of the reason behind that is my last district had a superintendent and we had a great deal of impact aid money. So we would have never passed a levy back there because it would have raised everybody's taxes. Our taxable valuation within that district was a little over $1 million in the entire district. We would have never been able to pass it. That being said, we came close within our district right now, 30 more votes and we'd have passed this, and which was in and itself a success to build on for this year, which we're going to run one again. But we're going to do things a little bit differently. In a place like Hot Springs, you can go door to door. You got to be careful where you go door to door, but you can go door to door. But I don't think we had enough community meetings, because everybody that came to the community meetings, they were all positive. There weren't any of your naysayers. So I believe we've got to pull more folks out to do that, but and we've got to communicate better throughout the course of the year. I mean, we send out all our electronic media to folks, Facebook, website, newsletter. You know, we get all that stuff out there, but the one-on-one, it almost seems to, we send all that stuff out there and we all almost seem to avoid the one-on-one, you know, meeting with our neighbors and that type of thing. And I think that's where we missed though, on that one levy that I've been part of. So we're gonna go back to back to the water pail this year. And we're already working on that. And we're gonna have some skin in the game right now because we are cutting some positions and say, this is what we said was going to happen. This is what we're having to do now. You know, we need your support or it's gonna affect our kids. It's gonna affect their education and they don't deserve that. They don't deserve that. So.
How would you establish a good public relations program in our school district?
I would, again, when we talk about things like levies and these kind of things, I think town meetings are essential and they don't have to have a purpose. Many times, having a monthly town meeting with the superintendent and a couple staff members talking about something such as, you know, really how are we doing performance wise in our formative testing, you know, some type of update, have a little meal for folks or whatever to get them in and have that town meeting and say, okay, what, you know, I've heard it. I heard one unsuccessful superintendent have he used to call it well, whatever she called it, it wasn't appropriate. And but it was basically a discussion and, you know, if you've got problems, if you got challenges, if you got gripes, bring them to that discussion and let's make the superintendent aware of it. Or the superintendent and board team, whatever, make them aware of it and let's see what we can do. And one thing that I've always found, you know, if somebody brings something to me that's a complaint, if I can find one thing within that complaint that I can do something about, it's gonna go a long way with most folks that you're at least attempting to do something or can solve one of their problems out of the myriad of problems that they might be bringing to you. So by those types of meetings, one-on-one, you build relationships and you're listening. They know that you're listening to them. And if you can solve one thing out of, again, a bunch of things that are being brought to you, well, that's one piece of success that you can build on. You do 3 things in 3 of those meetings, and that's a winning streak. And you document those things. Then at the end of the year, you got a long list of things at that last meeting. This is what we've accomplished over the year. Thanks to all of you for bringing this into me or bringing this into us. Thank you. Let's continue this relationship. Your participation as stakeholders into what we're doing here, your involvement here, it's essential for our success. It's essential for the success of our students and our staff. Thank you for doing so. And that will build, and it's a heck of a lot better than 20 people showing up at the board meeting because there's something happened out in the parking lot at 5:30 when nobody was here. And if we build a rapport with those folks, they're not going to be so quick to judge. And maybe that's already happening here, but no matter how much I tried to build that rapport with folks, I've always got plenty of growth to make and plenty of work to do. So I think, as much as we can do, or as much as I can do, I think it's worth it.
Why do you feel you are the best candidate for superintendent of West Valley School?
I don't know that I'm the best candidate for superintendent of West Valley. However, I do bring a great deal of passion into what I do, working with people, building relationships, with my staff, with my board, with my stakeholders. I absolutely love what I do. And I see myself doing it for, I keep telling my wife, 10 more years, 10 more years. I see myself, right now I'm looking at late 60s, early 70s before I walk away from this, because there's just too much excitement in education right now. I look at some of the problems in education, and to me, they're opportunities. How do we solve these problems? How do we bring folks together? How do we ensure that that we're not losing our staff because of things that we could put a little planning and a little work into to ensure that they're here, because those that leave, then we have a hole to fill. And once again, it takes away from our overall education of our students. And nobody wants that. We don't want our teachers to leave. And so I'm here to hopefully sell my candidacy off as somebody who could be the glue here.
Thank you.
Lastly, do you have any questions for us?
Not really, not at this time. I come to the end of these things, and it's been a while since I've been to one. And I think you got a great school. It's obvious that you've got a great board, great staff. Great businessman. To get to know that. No, it would just be general things that I could ask later if I was so fortunate that you're in the position.
Yeah. Is there anything regarding your application for this position for which you would assert your right to privacy and request that the board chair make a determination about whether you go into executive session?
No.
I'd give us an A+ or an AD, that we're gonna grade it, that's 443.
Oh,
So if we think, that's a great job, guys. If we feel like we're done, I'll walk Gerald out, and then, what happens after this, we talk to another candidate, we go into closed session to look at background checks. Talk to our legal counsel, and then we'll come back out, but most likely, our legal counsel is gonna say to get in contact with the candidates in the next 24 hours or something.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great meeting you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Great meeting you.
I'm gonna keep the recording going, but it's a great time for you guys. I know you have to like add up.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, you got to see, each one of those selections to score. You're the math teacher. What's that? You're in charge of assessing.
You can go back. You took notes.
Yeah, yeah. I was kind of watching, so you're right on track.
That's, yeah. God, they- But, they- That's so the case, we don't- But, as I said, we have to do it all together.
But sometimes it's. That's rough.
Well, a lot of it's part of it was fine. It was fine. That's-
Well, as far as the right number of questions or questions. That's perfect, so I felt like you had a chance to answer.
I think he did. I don't think he. No. Well, for another. It's a few. So. We're gonna go and do the documentation. That's true. On the advice I know. Why I said in that session, Richard didn't say that. One of the
Right, sure, yeah.
But we have to.
Sure. Yeah. Did I send it? Better clip on or customary time? Yeah, exactly. I kind of think that's what on purpose when I do it, wasn't it?
Thank you.
We know each other, yeah.
Richard, we'll begin this interview before saying that we're going to try to limit each question to 2 minutes.
Okay.
On account of the time constraint and get, so that we're able to get to the very end, which turned out we did. The first one, we'll try to do that again. So we'll start with Bonnie, with her first question.
Should we wait for Mark? Oh, yeah.
Making his entrance, nice, nice.
That's right, yeah.
Alrighty, give us a brief description of your educational experience and personal interests you have outside the field of education.
So educational experience is that I started out teaching at Hedges Elementary in Kalispell Public Schools. I taught 5th grade there, I taught 3rd and kindergarten. The kindergarten through 4th grade position opened up at West Valley, threw my name in the ring and ended up getting the position. So I came out here and was the K4 principal for a couple years, then became the K5 principal, and then the K4 principal. Then jumped into the interim superintendent role, which is where I am today. Personally, I have a lot of interest lately. I guess the most recent one that I've been getting into is hunting. It's been a part of my life for a very, very long time. Grew up doing it from the time I was very, very young with my dad. Took a little bit of break during college just because of it being very difficult to find time for it. Jumped back in and found that passion for that again. I love woodworking. I also really love to work in the yard. And kind of mess around with weeds and stuff like that. So people think I'm crazy, but it's very therapeutic for me. And it's quiet outside. My house can be very loud, especially in the summer. I have 2 boys, who both go to school here. In 3rd grade and in 1st grade. They are in Miss Belanger's 3rd grade class. It's Charlie, and Emmett is in Miss Takacha's 1st grade class. My wife works at Kalispell Public Schools as a school psychologist at Rankin Elementary and Russell Elementary. And as far as being a dad, it's the best thing. I love it. And it's kind of something I've always, been really proud to do that. Taking my boys to baseball, hunting with me, things like that. It kind of, it's a very special thing for me. So I really, really love doing it and love working with kids. Funny enough, here I am.
Thank you.
What do you feel are your strengths as an educational leader and as a person?
Yeah, as an educational leader, I think, it's funny that it's as an educational leader and a person, like they're two different things. I think that, ChatGPT isn't quite that good yet, to be separating people from the leadership, but, I think I'm dependable, as an educational leader. I'm attentive, I listen to people. I'm very patient also. I think that, it's kind of a tough thing to know exactly, I guess, how to do, everything the right way. We can't always do that. I had a mentor tell me that knowing, the right thing to do isn't hard, it's knowing how to do the right thing. And I feel like that takes patience, it takes being attentive to all sides, and it takes being dependable that you will show up. And that's something that I'm really proud of myself. In the elementary, I showed up, every day. Gave it my 100%, gave it my all, and that's just what I expected really of everybody. As long as you can go home and say that you gave it your all, that's okay. You don't have to always never be right. You don't have to always worry about making mistakes. But as long as you did your very best and could go home proud of that, that's good. Personally, I think more of the same. I think that I'm ambitious. It's kind of a trait that is also a fault, in that you're always kind of looking at the next challenge, looking for the next thing. And this is certainly in a position where I found that challenge. I feel like I am compassionate towards people. I care about the people who work with me, and I just couldn't ask for a better, place to be, and a better skill set to match the place where I would be, which is here.
Please describe a healthy relationship between the superintendent and board when working on day-to-day affairs and long-term planning of the district.
Yeah, I think there's many factors in that that come into play. The biggest thing I feel like is communication, and open communication with the board. Working with a board has been a new thing for me recently. I've always been adjacent to it. I've given reports to the board forever, but it's a different thing to have to call each and every person, explain something and talk. Sometimes longer with certain board members than others. But it really kind of shows that without that team approach, you really can't go forward in a district. There's always something that you can communicate with a board. I feel like if you're open and you're honest and you approach things with a problem-solving attitude versus, an accusatory or throwing people under the bus or you name it, it can get sour pretty quickly. I think this board works together extremely well. I think that in the past, that hasn't always been the case, especially very recently. If we go back to COVID, and I've seen it not good. And I think it's my number one priority to make it a positive experience, because I saw what it could do to a school, but it was not. I was directly involved in that and kind of made it a personal, professional goal that would not be at least what we show everybody at West Valley.
Give us an example of the process you would use in developing the school district budget for presentation to the board.
As always, anything financial, you got to know why you're reporting on it or what the board wants to know. Do you want to know where we are bottom line today? Do you want to know projections of where we will be in March or April? Do you want to know what we're spending and when this year compared to last year? There's a lot that goes into it. So I think, choosing whatever you guys want to know would be where I grab that information. And of course, I would lean a lot on business manager, because I think that we work really well together and can look at data and see the same things. That's been a huge, huge asset for us this year. Because I can kind of say, okay, what would, make the staff understand where we are? And Mark and I can work together to say, okay, this is where we are. It's open, it's transparent, there's nothing there. And so how do we communicate? How do we communicate? There's not a lot of water in the bear. So, yeah, I think I would want to know where your target is first. Then I would get us there comprehensively through the analysis of the budget.
Thank you.
Provide some examples of the approach you have taken or would take when difficult choices have to be made for budget reduction. And how would you communicate your recommendations to all stakeholders?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a real one right now too. You definitely, taking a look at what you try to do is of course make financial decisions that are the least effective to kids. And when you look at that from a broader perspective, then you can kind of pick out areas where there's some, where there's some savings to be had, which is, I think, a really neat thing to do. And I enjoy doing it, where you shave off, several $1,000s on the trash, for example. Or you can look at different contracts and get a better deal on, color printing. You can look at, custodians, where they are during the day, kind of map out, a better way for them to be able to do their job. That type of thing is incredibly important. It's kind of fun to do. I feel like the other piece of that is the people part too. I think we're at 92, roughly 93% of our budget goes to salaries and wages. And so you got to think to yourself, wow, that is really great for kids. We've got people where they need to be. We've got tons of resources. We have lots of support here. But in the end, when you have all of those things, you do pay for it. And we're going through a situation right now where our A and B is kind of flatlined a little bit, and it's actually kind of gone down just rough, a couple percentage points and not very much overall. But when I first got here, we were going through skyrocketing, A and B, and that really affects your budget and what you're able to do. And so now it's kind of like it's the after party right now. We're really looking at where's the best way we can staff people and get the best people where they need to be. But at the same time, know that at the end of the day, the state and the county are going to be coming. They're going to be there if we don't somehow get out of the reserves. So,
Thank you.
How would you build relationships between administration and the certified and classified staff?
I think that's one thing that I'm really, really good at doing. I feel like being in person is definitely a way to build those relationships. I don't think you can build relationships through email. I think you have to do it face to face. I think you have to be visible. I think you have to be willing to also jump in whenever and wherever you can. And I think that, as in any organization, if you take care of your people and you show them that, you understand where they're coming from, you want to be there to help them, and you let them do their jobs, then I think those relationships will just automatically be stronger. One thing I've learned is it doesn't mean that everything's just so happy, glory, and wonderful kumbaya all the time. But a strong relationship is when you can have conflicts as well. And so it just makes it, impossible without that. And that's one thing as a teacher, I always really, really tried to do is make relationships with my kids, because I knew that without that relationship, it was really, really hard to enforce anything or to ask them to do anything. Same as a principal, I tried really, really hard to form those relationships with teachers and with parents and with kids as well. It's not always easy. It takes a lot of effort, But if you show vulnerability at times, if you, show that you are dependable and you show that you have the skills to do what you're asking them to do, then there's an inherent, I guess, mutual reciprocal respect with that. And I feel like, over the last 7 months, that's really something that has been kind of an educational moment for me too, is that really nothing can work without relationships. So building those very quickly and purposefully is so important. And I think transparency in that is key, really, when it all comes down to it.
What's your philosophy on delegating authority and how do you maintain accountability?
Yeah, I always say that, it's really important that you hire people who are smarter than you are, and then you get out of their way. And I've been so blessed that, the number one thing is you hire people, good quality, solid people. I didn't say teachers, I didn't say, paras, I didn't say anything. I said you hire quality people, and then you let them do what they are trained to do and what they're good at. I feel like as soon as you go to that micromanaging spot, you run into trouble. As soon as you try to, play the puppet strings behind the curtain, you run into trouble. If you give a standard of what you expect, make it a clear expectation, and then you allow the person to do what you ask them to do. Now, more often than not, that's enough, and then plenty good at letting someone delegate or delegating that to someone else. Because you cannot do any job in education without help, without support. And if you don't trust your people to be able to do the job that you hired them for, you're going to run into speed bump after speed bump after speed bump. And I feel like it's very effective to, as the person in that leadership role, also communicate that you have their back. And that if something doesn't go well, or if there's some conflict on the back end of it, that, yeah, I gave you the room to do that. I'm here to support you. But if you've set those clear expectations for them, then you can go to bat for that person and say, we were in this together. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I will support you in your endeavor. But then at the end of the day, it always stops with me at the end. When all is said and done, it stops with the person in the highest leadership role. So that's why really hiring the best people is so important, because it makes everybody's job that much easier. But taking responsibility is also very important from the person who's at the top.
Describe how you would work with the school principals in our small district setting.
Yeah, I think that's a really unique thing that West Valley has that a lot of other districts don't, is that we are quite large, the second largest K-8 district in the state of Montana, but we're under one building. So finding each other isn't difficult. And I feel like talking to your principals every day is super important. And a lot of times it's not necessarily easy to get down and face to face and have meetings with them, but just even touching base with your principals and just saying, hey, how can I support you today? What's going on? Tell me what you're dealing with. Because it really goes back to forming those relationships and, saying like, hey, I'm in it with you. I'm there with you to, till the end. So yeah, we've had situations even today that I can think of where you're going down and you're talking to, the person making those decisions, and you're showing them, hey, this is what I would do. My experience tells me this is the best way to handle that. Do it, and I've got your back when you're done. So I think that really the principals, kind of go just hand in hand with their buildings. You run them, you do the best you can. I'll be there to help you along the way, and setting that culture with them is what's key, because I feel like you set how you would do things, and you kind of coach and guide, and then they mirror you. I kind of always said that your classroom kind of takes on your personality a little bit. Which, and I think teachers do that too. They kind of start to buy in and the culture follows itself. And I think it's even more apparent, from the superintendent's seat. And I do feel like it's, the leadership does start from the top. And yeah, I think that having relationships with your principals is so important.
How can this community and this board know that they have an effective school program?
The school programming in regard to, like curriculum programs, things like that.
It is under curriculum.
I think really in the end, you have to rely on community for that. I think that there needs to be, dialogue and open communication. I think that a committee set up that looks at curriculum regularly, and knows like, every year, this is what, our curriculum is. This is where we feel it's weak. This is where we feel it's strong. And then communicating that regularly to the board is very, very important. And I think school leaders should be involved in that and participate in that directly. I do not feel like it can be done haphazardly with just no end goal in sight. I feel like it needs to be systematic, and I feel like you need to look at both, or not even both, but all math, reading, science, social studies. And you need to understand that this is what is driving our instruction. And if you invest in what's driving instruction, the return on your investment is going to be huge. Without knowing what your teachers are teaching, that's a recipe for disaster. You do not have to be an expert on it, but you definitely have to be involved and know at the ground level what's involved in that. What are teachers liking about it? What do teachers not like about it? If there's a lot that you don't like about it, how are we going to supplement that curriculum without doing the, supplanting? And if it's really, really good, how can we build on that? What are the supports for that curriculum? So the structure is set up, I think, easily to be a regularly communicated standard to the board about what, renewals are coming up in a few years. And try to also organize them so that everything isn't up for renewal at the same time, that you have a rolling process with that. But again, it's really up to, educational leaders to do that and to set up that standard of practice. Because it's really, it's not gonna do it on its own, really. And nobody really wants to, sit there and analyze curriculum all day. It's not really what I'm saying, but through an organic process that things come to light, and then those things that come to light are communicated regularly. And then, the rest will take care of itself. And that is, the kids will, go home, show their parents what they're working on. I see what the boys are working on. I've taught the same thing the boys are working on. So I have a huge advantage in that. But I think that the community would trust, the board to look into that and making sure that what we are teaching is, applicable, it's standards-based, it's, research-based. And without being educated on that, for the board to know what those terms even mean or what that looks like, then, you can look at it all day, but you have to be taught as well. And that takes a committee of teachers, leaders, people who are just working with it, to be able to communicate what you might want to know and be able to.
Where should leadership reside in curriculum development? Explain your answer.
See before. No.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think education leaders should be directly involved in the curriculum process. I think it shows that you're invested in it. I do not feel like it can be just an expectation that's out there that's, yeah, we might get to it when we get to it. Let's see how it plays out. I think there should definitely be conversations regularly about the curriculum. Is it going to change the curriculum? Not necessarily, because we have, 5 years, but if we can dive in and see where the holes are, and then fill those holes, then it's gonna allow us to maybe say, hey, we're gonna go get a different thing this time. We don't have access to the curriculum co-op anymore. Districts got out of that, they disbanded. So it went from serving 23 districts in our area to serving like 6 or 7 or something like that, and then it just dissolved. So we have to do it on our own, right? And that's not gonna happen by just sitting there and waiting for people to do it. It takes direction, actionable items, and taking a look at standards. What does it hit? What does it not? Yeah, and I've seen firsthand where I've taken a look at some of Emmett's stuff too in first grade and math and thought, huh, that's interesting. You know, I wonder what that's about. And that's just the thing that's happening 400 times a day in this school when, you know, kids get old, parents are looking at what they're doing. So if I'm doing it, parents are doing it, and so we have to make that a purposeful part of what our long-term strategic plan is for the district. It's curriculum implementation.
Thank you. How do you feel about the Common Core standards implementation?
Yeah, that's recording, so. But I do feel like standards are standards, right? And so we teach not necessarily to a test, but we teach to standards so that students can then apply that knowledge in areas of their life and become a well-rounded individual. That's the goal. I feel like in a lot of ways, the Common Core curriculum has been misunderstood over the many, many years. And I think it's been unfortunately politicized to an extent that really it didn't need to. Some of what I look at, again, I'll bring up in some of the math that I taught, you know, especially third grade level. I was worried that maybe kids are not prepared for doing that level of math at that age. Saw the same thing in kindergarten when I taught there. And it concerned me that I could look at a page and think, you know, I don't know if kids are developmentally ready for that. I feel like kids surprise us a lot though, and I feel like they are ready for a lot more than we think. I don't really feel like getting rid of Common Core standards would benefit. I don't feel like diving into them would benefit anybody either, or, you know, to the level that some people do. I think that at the end of the day, they're standards, and so we teach to them. They are vetted standards. They're really just a different way of saying a lot more clearly what kids are learning, which is what I really like about it. About them. In the past, before, especially when I taught 5th grade, the standards-based report card didn't even, I mean, it didn't really say what even I could communicate as a teacher to a parent, what I felt like it should say. I feel like taking a look at the standards with the Common Core standards and applying them to what the kids are learning, then you can create a more effective, you know, report for a test, for example, and say this, you know, adding, you know, to 20 or whatever it is. That's clear. I think it did a lot of good in the ELA part where I think it showed, you know, that there were simpler, you know, meanings to things, but at the same time, still maintaining a high level of expectation. So, yeah, I feel like, you know, very strongly that we are using, you know, the right standards for what we are teaching kids.
Okay, give us examples of your involvement when dealing with facilities, grounds, and building projects.
Yeah, that's something I've been involved in here from the very beginning, because we've expanded a lot here. And I think, I was just talking about this with somebody else the other day. I think I've been a part of 5 or 6 building projects since I've been here, and this is my 7th year. Whether that be converting the science lab into 2 classrooms, a conference room into 2 classrooms, or 1 classroom, excuse me, building 2 classrooms outside, getting rid of a playground area outside, seeing the, you know, how, you know, in need of attention the north wing of the elementary building is day in and day out over the years. Just, I mean, seeing pipes, not, work when you come back from winter break or even during winter break and coming, and, seeing the water falling on you. I mean, just, over the weekend, we had a, leak here, very close over here. I feel like Phil and I just, kind of all the time are calling each other. He's calling me saying, hey, just a heads up, this is happening in the ceiling, and okay, all right, the facilities are definitely something that I've been directly involved in for since day one, I guess. So with that said, we've got a lot of work to do with facilities. I think that's one of the biggest things facing us in our next few years, whether that be heaters or HVAC systems, whatever that ends up being. We're going to need a plan going forward that is specific, attainable, and it's crucial. In fact, it's not something that is ever cheap, but at the very, very least, we have to make sure that kids are okay in this building. And so that's part of what, the building walks are for, that you do both outside and inside. Yeah, even when we closed school that day, I was out with a big long brush trying to get snow off of the intakes so that the heaters didn't try to work super, super hard to get the air in. It's just things like that you don't think of, until you're like, it's on you, you're the person. So that's been a learning curve, but as far as the facilities, the financial piece end of it, and just knowing how crucial and which areas are most crucial in this building, I think is an advantage that I have. I don't think most principals got as good of a learning tutorial facilities as I did coming in. So I'm grateful for that.
Thank you.
What experiences have you had with the transportation program?
Transportation doesn't come up a lot when you're a principal unless it's IEPs, special ed, or, behavior incidents. But as far as like the interworkings of, the transportation budget, that's something that I'm learning now and how that works. I do have, direct knowledge of what it takes to get a kid transportation from, one school to the other. What I mean by that is to a different setting where they wouldn't be when they're here, or a different school, for example, that is better able to serve their needs. I think really, if you think about it, transportation is a huge part of our day, every single day. We have several hundred kids who ride the bus every day and, spend 15, 20 minutes on it. And so, and knowing a little bit about it is important. I've been in bus driver meetings, from the very beginning. We used to have them pretty often. I'd like to get us back to doing that so that we're kind of more communication, like with Dave, our bus manager, and so he can communicate with Billy. And so, yeah, I think that really it's important to maintain relationships with your bus drivers. I've had lots of calls with the bus drivers over the years, and so yeah, you get to know them as definitely as someone who works with the kids. And yeah, financially, it's a huge, but luckily it's reimbursed because our district is spread out a lot relative to its size, and so we have lots of miles, which are very expensive, but we get federally reimbursed for that. So.
What steps would you find appropriate in planning for growth in the district?
I think first and foremost, that goes back to facilities and the financial end of it. What you don't want to do is grow to a point to where you can't fund that growth. So you have to really make sure that you're in a good financial situation before you even think about looking to grow. Right now, that's not us. We are not in a situation where we're financially healthy enough to even think about growing more than they are. So we've got to fix that first. I think I mean, we did grow incredibly fast in my time here. I think during one of my last staff meetings as a principal, I did some math and found out that I'd hired 18 of 35, 36 certified people in 6 years, which is incredibly unheard of out there. And so I've seen firsthand what staff turnover and growth at the same time can do to a culture. And it was kind of something I'm very proud of, that in the elementary, we were able to maintain a very tight and very positive overall working culture with that much turnover. Because it's very hard to teach your unwritten rules and to teach what you believe in, to teach how you go about doing business every day when there's a lot of new faces. And very, very quickly, that can have a major impact on your culture. And really, it did not in the elementary. I'm really proud of that. So I've been a part of the building process, been a part of the staffing process, and then I've been a part of looking at it from a procedural standpoint and thinking, how are we going to serve all of these kids the best we can, whether that be staffing small groups, recess, lunch, maintaining low class sizes, all of those things have been conversations I've had many, many times a year since 2017.
Hey, have you been involved in a mill levy election bond or building reserve voter approval campaign? Please evaluate the success slash failure of this campaign.
Yes. And they didn't pass. Next question. We ran a couple levies right before COVID, and then we were going to run another levy in May of 2020, but decided not to run that levy during COVID, and then we ran a bond after that in 2021, 2022 school year. So yeah, it's, I mean, definitely something I've been a part of, and I'm deeply a part of now in the very, very thick of it. And the biggest challenge, I think, is, of course, communicating the need to the voters, while at the same time, understanding that only 30% of your residents in the district have a tie to your school. That leaves 70% out there that don't get newsletters, that don't have kids in the building, that just really don't have any connection whatsoever, which is something that shocked me, that I learned about in the board training that we went to. So it's even less than a third of your community. I feel like right now, I feel like we're doing a better job at getting the word out to people. I was at a training for a House bill in Evergreen, and I had a person from another district come up and say, "Wonderful survey. Wow, that was awesome." I was dropping Charlie off at a baseball practice, like that Logan Health Center, and a parent was like, "Wow, that was a great survey." Like, "Wow, thank you. Yeah, I did that." But no, in all seriousness, it just really shows that I think we got, what, 418 replies and responses from that survey. That's huge. So we're getting the message out there, and I think we're doing a better job. I think that levies become much easier to pass when your community trusts the school. And I feel like in general, I feel like lately over the years, the community and the school have kind of lost some of their trust. And I don't know if it's necessarily just trust in the system as a whole, but there's definitely some healing, I think, that needs to be done. We, went through COVID, and that was hard enough in and of itself. But I feel like when we didn't, let parents in, for example, you've got parents here who hadn't been in the building for 2 years, really, with kids. That's not a really easy way to maintain a good relationship with your kids. So that was a huge challenge coming out of that. And I feel like we also are fighting an incredibly hard national narrative, right? Which is that schools don't use money wisely. they're teaching things we don't want our kids to learn, that, you know, we are inefficient with how we even do those things. So we really, really have a challenge ahead of us to fight a national narrative out there that's really right now not pro-school. I saw it go very pro-school about March of 2020. And then a couple months after that, I saw it start to swing a different way. And then even more so after that, with the restrictions that we had coming back in, I saw it get even worse and worse and worse and worse. So, you know, I've seen firsthand what trust in a school can do. And if your community trusts you, if your parents trust you, it's a lot easier to get the word out about things. And I feel like we have a lot of work to do to get the trust back in our community. I feel like we're doing that. I think the PTO has done an incredible job with getting some of the community involved, you know, just here locally with the Blue Bash, I think the ornament, I mean, all of that stuff. The lunch and mingle was a huge success. I think 90+%, 95% of parents were able to attend that. That's how you get people in the building, right? That's how you get them to see your school. That's how you get them to know that they have a stake in it. Without that, it's just another building that you drive by. So we really have to, you know, to know that we have challenges ahead. And we do have a unique school in that, you know, from what you see from the road is nowhere close to what our school is. And when you drive by, you kind of see, you know, just these windows, you know, down at middle school, and you see this side building of the elementary. It's much bigger than that. It's much, you know, more, you know, kids involved in that. We've got, you know, a third of the parking lot full and windows to look at. They don't see kids playing, you know, they don't necessarily, unless you're driving down McManamy, you know, they don't see the kids out there running around like you do driving past Russell on 93. You know, we're at right on Airport Road, like you don't see kids when you drive by. So that makes our challenge even greater, to reach out to those people. That other 70% is out there, and I think that we tap into them and they trust us. We're going to get there.
That leads in well to our next question. How would you establish a good public relations program in our school district?
We have about 3 minutes left and 2 questions.
2 questions, okay. I think the writing letters has proven to be a really good way. That I've seen a lot of feedback when we put that letter together that was for subbing, and that, you know, we were in desperate need of subs. We got such great feedback from that. And I think that people want to be involved. I just don't think they know how. If you look at our responses too for the survey, how many names, and you just keep scrolling and scrolling for people who signed up that said they want to help. And I think that's indicative of, you know, people, you've got to use that somehow. So, yeah, I think just honestly, newsletters, you know, hosting events, I think is huge. You know, getting people in to watch, you know, the middle school music concerts, middle school dances. I mean, things are always happening. We always host things that, you know, on the weekend. So, so I feel like the message is ready to be out there. And I think that we're well on our way to having good open communication with the community.
Why do you feel you're the best candidate for superintendent of West Valley School?
Well, I think I'm the best candidate because I truly know the inner workings of the school. I'm kind of as local as you can get, really. I live, you know, a mile away, 3 minutes from the building. I've taken my neighbor's dog from the playground in my pickup and drove him home. So I understand, you know, the communities. It's been, you know, a blessing to be able to move back here. My wife grew up in this area. She has a very large extended family that lives in this district. And so I really feel like I know the financial situation. I know the staff. I know the heartbeat, the pulse of this school, and I've given it my blood, sweat, and tears over the years with a smile, most of the time. And, I feel like I want to continue to do the job that we've set out to do, and that is to, you know, improve the West Valley School District in the best way we can. And it starts with, you know, the kids and the teachers. I told my staff all the time, teachers do the heavy lifting every single day. And we've got, and unbiasedly, we've got the best staff that you can possibly have. So, yeah,
Lastly, do you have any questions for us?
I think I don't.
Okay, last question. Is there anything regarding your application for this position for which you would like to assert your right to privacy and request the board chair make a determination about whether to go into executive session?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna pause the recording. We're gonna meet down in Bonnie's room for a closed session. Just talked to Elizabeth Calva. And I said, give us till 5:45 so that we can a chance to talk. And then she'll give us some counsel as to what we're gonna do when we come back. Sound good? Awesome.
Come back from an executive session where we have met and discussed the two very good candidates we had for the superintendent position, and we looked over a lot of the information and evaluated what we needed to do. We also had other counsel from a lawyer who's handling this for us. And so I think now I'd entertain a motion that from what we have discussed, that as our general consensus for our superintendent choice going forward.
I'll make a motion to hire Richard Gross for superintendent for next year, and then Mark is gonna work on the contract with V. Kaliva with Jeff in that too.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? And the thing is that contract will be ready Monday for our school board meeting, so we'll be able to accept that contract, and Richard will be on board as of Monday. So, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? So we will have a new superintendent as of Monday. Thank you, and thank you.
Meeting's adjourned,
I don't know if
or you need a motion to adjourn?
I don't think so. We never really
Started.
I'd like to just say one word to thank Mark Fessler for all the organization and taking this on to get this ready, getting everything set up. It ran very smoothly and at a lot of it. Well, the reason it did was because Mark was very good at organizing it. So thank you, Mark, for the time.
Appreciate that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.